What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, talking why it's going down as much as it has been, and then I'll go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So my last SoFi update video, it was roughly around $8, which at that stage, the data points, the technicals all pointed to a breakout. But here we are, currently at $7.43, down 0.80%. Very low volume, so I want to break it down on everything that you need to know for today. But 19.1 million shares being traded, 50.3 is the average. When it comes to news, there's been nothing out from SoFi today. Rather, there's been a lot of Form 144s being submitted over the last several days. So 2 on November the 2nd and 1 yesterday afternoon. So this is not a good sign because Form 144s does show and indicates upcoming sales from insiders. So as you can see, these are some of the ones that were submitted the last couple of days. So on November the 2nd, so Chad Borden, who is the president of SoFi Bank, and he did sell 152,000 shares. And typically some are for tax purposes and whatever else, but this was a transaction code S, meaning straight up sell. And then there was also this, so Aaron Webster, who is the CRO, and they sold 215,000 shares and transaction code S. So once again, not necessarily the best. And even this one was submitted yesterday. So this is what a Form 144 kind of looks like. And this is for Stafford Webb Lauren. And ultimately does indicate that they're going to be selling 135,000 shares. So this is just many red flags popping up. And why? Nobody necessarily knows. But once again, if these were for tax purposes or for whatever else, like that'd be somewhat justified. But this is all the transactions that have occurred other than what I just mentioned because it hasn't updated yet. But technically, this is what you would ideally be satisfied over. If there was a sale, transaction code F, meaning for tax purposes, which even Anthony does that. So the last being September the 18th, he did exercise some of his, I guess, restricted stock or warrants or whatever else. And then he did take some off for tax purposes. So kind of normal stuff. This is what happens with a lot of companies and everyone else. But technically, when it is a straight up sale, it is transaction code S. So these are not good in my opinion. So like I said, whenever you see insider selling, does show that there's a bad sentiment at foot. So I don't know if there's maybe some strategic changes going to be coming in the foreseeable future or not, but they did have a very kick-ass earnings once again. So as far as changing up some of the VPs, I don't know, doesn't really make sense. And then as well, there was this that was posted, or at least came out yesterday, which I think is causing a little bit more of a negative issue with SoFi, and that is good old Jim Cramer. So oddly enough, he likes SoFi once again. So I'll just quickly play this a couple second snippet on what he does say and probably on why it is aiding in SoFi to trend down.
SoFi stock.
Let's buy some. Let's buy some. The stock was down 6.5%. Made no sense whatsoever. They are turning the corner. They are doing everything right. I think it goes higher. Let's go to Alan in Florida.
So very short and sweet, but ultimately that might also be attributing to why it's been going down. So again, you have just a negative sentiment and you have inverse Cramer happening right now. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But aside from that though, a lot of articles that have been coming out oddly is very, very positive. So once again, that might be a good thing. The fact that a lot of people do see a lot of value with SoFi. There hasn't been any recent analyst ratings. So the last rating was essentially, I believe, a couple days back. So it looks like right here, it was yesterday with Mizuho. Dan, who does have a 45% success rating, gave a $15 price target. And plus, while I'm on here, does look like the latest Morningstar report did update. So it shows a fair market value for SoFi being $14.50. So making all of this downtrend even that much more confusing. And it's not like the broader market is selling off. A lot of heavily shorted stocks are getting massacred today, and plus the EV sector. But when it comes down to the broader market and the indexes, they are green. So once again, making what's been happening over the last several days very confusing. So starting off, give yourself a shout out in the comments below. Did you buy recently? Did you sell? What have you been doing with SoFi? And I'll go over some of the options data and many things like that. So starting off, $1.19 million in calls being purchased versus 721,000 in puts. So comparing this to previous days, the puts definitely have gone up quite significantly, meaning people are a little bit more bearish possibly in the short term. Looking at some of the open interest, looking at the calls more specifically, it is anticipated to be roughly around between the $8 to $9 range by the end of next week. By looking at puts though, it is a large consensus that it is going to be sub $7 by the end of next week. So you kind of have conflicting stuff, but no matter what, when it comes down to options activity, it is just merely a sentiment and does not move the stock price. So like I said, my last update was oddly very positive because a lot of the data points all kind of pointed to that, but now things have turned. Even looking at some of the technicals with it at $7.45, it is now between this S1 and the pivot, which comparing it to other growth stocks, it is definitely lagging. So as it stands right now, $6.87 is going to be that next strong support, and $7.65, which it kind of bounced off of a little bit today, that's going to be the next strong resistance. So who knows? Right now for the rest of the week, there's not really any data points to really validate any major movement for SoFi and the broader market. Rather, we just have to wait until next week. But again, I think right now SoFi has been really setting the trajectory for a lot of good earnings and the business itself. So once again, once it does obtain profitability, I don't think anyone would have any issues with SoFi whatsoever. But again, looking on the technical stance, there's a lot of wide gaps. So that does mean that there's going to be a lot of volatility. So you just have to be comfortable with that, because as I've said in the past, SoFi is trying to innovate one of the oldest sectors known to, I guess, the stock market essentially. So it's not going to be easy by any means. So it's going to take time. You're going to have a lot of manipulation and just randomness that happens. And you're going to have a lot of people like good old Jim Cramer that keep saying that he loves SoFi, which might cause it to continue to go down. But no matter what, this definitely does need to get quashed very fast. Is a lot of the insiders selling, or vice versa. I know my last update video, I actually said this, the fact that it would be very advantageous for Anthony Noto to buy, because typically he likes to buy around the $4 and $5 range, which obviously signals that at that price, it is a steal of a deal, but he's never really bought anything over, I believe, $6. So once again, I think if he decides to buy right now, that would be a huge sentiment booster. But once again, I could be wrong. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. I'll go over a couple of more data points showing today number of retail investors are getting in, and looking at stochastic, a little bit more bearish, so red line above the black, and it is at 65, which overall is kind of neutral for that. So it's not oversold, not overbought, but technically a bearish sentiment is starting to form right now. And looking on this, so short interest isn't really updating, but as it stands, 13.23% of the free float's being shorted, 111.54 million shares overall are being shorted, and through the interactive broker short availability does indicate that there's more than 10 million shares available to be shorted. So once again, if shorts really saw that SoFi was garbage and was going to trend down, they have more than enough ammunition to really just double down. But let me know your thoughts on SoFi in the comments below. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying, selling, holding? What have you been doing? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And with all that said, I appreciate all of you watching.